Hey class, today we're going to read a story called Honeybees. Now, this is a nonfiction book. So if you remember, fiction books are stories that are made up, and nonfiction are true facts, information. So you'll learn lots of great information about honeybees in this book. I think honeybees are just amazing how God made them. And I'm hoping this week when you're out on your nature study, you might see some bees or at least see the pollen in the flowers that the bees get out. So let's read it. Honeybees by Jill Esbaum. Look, a honeybee. Buzzing through a warm afternoon, a little worker bee dips into colorful flowers again and again and again. A honeybee visits hundreds of flowers a day, tasting each one with its feet. So you can see, this is up close. You can see the pollen. In real life, pollen is itty bitty tiny little yellow dots, but it sticks to their furry feet. From each flower, she collects a sweet liquid called nectar. She sips the runny nectar through her straw-like tongue and stores it in a special just for honey tummy. So the tongue is called a proboscis, and that's what they suck up the nectar out of the flower with, and then they're able to store it in their special tummy that's just for honey, and you'll see what happens. Flower pollen dusts the bee like fluffy golden snow. Every once in a while she stops, rolls the pollen into balls, and stuffs these into tiny sacks on her back legs. Honey, I'm home. When the bee is so heavy with nectar and pollen she can barely fly, she heads home to the hive. Thousands of other workers are arriving home too. Inside the hive, the air hums with excitement. Bees bustle to and fro. The whole colony works together for its queen. As long as she is safe and healthy, so is the hive. Worker bees bring her food and carry out her waste. They fan their wings to keep the hive cool. You can see what the beehive looks like. What shape? We've talked about this before. What shape is in the beehive? Let me see. It's a hexagon, yeah. One of the most important jobs in the hive is caring for the queen's many eggs. So this is a picture of a honeybee egg. And it says a hive is made up of many honeycombs. Through spring and summer, she lays up to 2,000 eggs per day. Wow! She wiggles her abdomen down into a honeycomb and drops each egg into its own six-walled cell, the little hexagon. So she lays the eggs there. An eggshell melts away, and hello, larva! The chubby baby looks nothing like a bee yet. So that's the bee in its larva stage. For 3 days, the larva is fed a milky mush called royal jelly. Then it is switched to a honey pollen mixture called bee bread. Each larva weaves a cocoon. Inside its body keeps growing and changing. So there they are in their little cocoons. Finally, a honeybee chews open its cocoon and climbs out of its cozy cell. Ta-da! Crawl. There he is, crawling out. Honeybees keep their hive clean and neat, so the new bee's first job is to clean her room. Just like you clean your room. Hives can be found in unusual places. Many honeybees live in human-made hives. A beekeeper opens a hive to remove part of the sticky golden honey. Yum. So you may have seen a beekeeper before. Look, he wears special mask, special suit just to protect him from the bees. And then he's able to harvest the honey when the bees make enough honey. And they live in the hive. Here's another picture though. It looks like in this one, it's a natural hive. It looks like they built their beehive in a tree. Bye-bye, Buzzy. Hope you find a lot of lovely flowers. And then this page is busy as a bee. There's plenty of work to do in a honeybee hive. Every worker does each of these jobs in order, moving from one to the next every few days during her 6 weeks of life. So a bee only lives 6 weeks, a worker bee. First, worker bees are always female. They clean out their cells. Second, they feed the queen and the larva. Third, they build and repair honeycombs. They make honey from the nectar. And then they guard the hive entrance. And then they also fly out to collect nectar. So each hive has only one queen bee. She is the only one able to lay the eggs. The eggs are as tiny as the very tip of a brand new crayon. So that's very small. And then this says, male honeybees are called drones. They do not work in the hive, and they only live long enough to mate with the queen. When fall arrives and the weather turns cold, drones are kicked out of the hive. Let's see some of these pictures. More honey, please. Have you had real nice honey made by bees? I have. It's so good. Bees make honey from, do you remember? Flower nectar. They store it in the topmost cells of their honeycomb. They eat both honey and pollen. Pollen is stored in cells below the honey. Where do you store your food? Now this is a man working at a beehive. And one day, a worker bee brings home enough nectar to make only a tiny bit of honey. But a hive might have 50,000 or more bees working. So working together, they can make as much as 2 pounds of honey per day. That's enough honey to fill 2 canning jars. Wow. The bee is the key. When bees fly from flower to flower, tiny grains of pollen stick to their feet, and then they get dropped off on another flower. That's called pollination, and it's what helps the flowers make more flowers. Bees pollinate many food crops too. Without bees, we couldn't enjoy things like apples, blueberries, cherries, cucumbers, strawberries, or melons, because they help pollinate all of these plants. Bees are important to many ecosystems. You can help them by planting nectar-rich flowers like daisies and marigolds and blue flowers, like salvia. Bees seem to like the color blue. You might also plant any of the fruits or berries mentioned above, as well as broccoli, pumpkins, and tomatoes. And they like to pollinate those things. This page says waggle dance. When a worker bee returns to the hive, it sometimes does a waggle dance. The special wiggle waggle moves are actually directions that show other worker bees where to go to find the flowers. Can you look at the picture and waggle dance like a honeybee? Can you do that? Woo! So when they're dancing, they're actually telling each other, go over there, that's where all the nectar is, in that flower. They can communicate. And that's the end. So I hope you learned some really cool facts about honeybees, and I hope you have fun this week on your nature study, looking for bees and other insects, and just enjoying being outside. Take care, guys.